But I think it's hard for us and the millennials as we're inheriting our parents' things, to have the emotional baggage of carrying on. They weren't able to let go of things, and I want to honor my loved one. How can I let go of this?
Yes.
And that's just so complex. It's just very complex with grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complex with honoring somebody's life and legacy and memory of them. And we want to be very gentle and delicate with that. But there's millions of millennials who are really experiencing this hardship of, I've inherited my parents' home and all of their 300,000 or more belongings in their home.
Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. We are Courtney Huckabee, a psychotherapist,
and Jen Harris, an interior designer
who have teamed up to reflect,
challenge,
and reframe your mindset in relationship with your personal belongings.
Join us as we discuss and declutter all of the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Learn to intentionally create environments with improved function and design that cultivate peace of mind. Find the reframe.
Start your reclaim.
Hi, welcome back to Reframe and Reclaim. I'm Courtney Huckabee.
I'm Jen Harris.
And we're here in 2026, this new year, new us. We're starting to learn how to declutter and let go. And we're here today to talk about inheritance. And not always a great thing to inherit something, but we've come across somebody on social media that is like speaking our language. And we want to talk about this. You know, I'm a millennial. Are you a millennial?
I'm the bridge.
It's so hard. We're like the 77 to 83 generation. That's not really millennial, but we are millennial.
I feel like I identify more Gen X, but I feel like I'm sandwiched between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, we're in this place of, you know, we're the sandwich generation. Not only are we sandwiched in between Gen Xers and millennials, but we're also sandwiched in this life chapter of our aging parents and taking care of children, like many of you out there. And there's a new person that I found on social media. So glad I found him, talking about this thing called the millennial inheritance. Have you heard of this?
Through you, yes.
And this millennial inheritance, we think, yay, we're inheriting things. And if you've ever inherited something from someone, not always all the things that we inherit are things that we want or desire or want the responsibility for. And this gentleman, he talks about how there's a lot of people who are sharing the experience of inheriting what he calls emotional baggage from the boomers, or those who are our parents' generation, of when they aren't allowed to let go, when they don't have the capability or the skills of letting go of things. And we write about this in our book and Jen's experience. And so if you'll share a little bit about that, like how this is so normalized for our generation.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, I think it also goes to, you know, in the book we talk about like generational habits that are passed down. And, you know, my grandparents were like, hold on to it. Great Depression. You don't know when you might need it.
Right.
Hold on to everything.
Resourceful.
Yes. And then my parents were not taught how to let go of things. So then I was not taught how to let go of things. And so it's just patterns repeating themselves, and the stuff just keeps getting accumulated. And, you know, there's kind of this running joke in our house where it's like, if my grandfather had, you know, bought, you know, stock in like Coca-Cola, as opposed to saying Avon bottles shaped like cars are going to be the next big collector item, you know? Yes. So, you know, like we'd be millionaires, you know? But it's like, I found this at a church bazaar. I think it's going to be worth something one day. I only spend a quarter on it, and, you know, I can sell it for $1. So therefore, you know, I've quadrupled my money.
Right.
But it has then turned into mounds and mounds of things that someone has to go through. Or I should take that back. You do have the option of just letting it all go and being done with it. I have a hard time because I was not taught how to let go, being able to do that easily. I'm getting much better. But for me, I still feel like I have to touch every item, look at every item in order to be respectful of the person that passed, in order to make sure I'm not letting go of something that would really remind me of them. In my experience, have I ever found something where I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know, I forgot about this, and this is the one thing I always wanted, and how I can never let this go? No. But mentally and emotionally, I'm like, I have to touch everything and go through just to make sure.
And I think that this is one of those big things, and we talk about generational patterns. We learn so much from the people we live with, their habits, their experiences, and how they view things. Sometimes we also adopt that as well. And so when you
Yes.
think about the boomers who are, at an age where, they've lived a long life, they've lived a lot of experiences, but they've also held on to a lot of things. That generation who are, of the children of the Great Depression, whenever we had to hold on to things, you never know when things are going to get really bad. We have to be resourceful. We want to make sure we can make ends meet. They have learned that through role modeling. And there's been a big pendulum, kind of like swing. We have the boomers who have learned how to hold on to so much because there was once a lack of resources and a need to have those things, to now those that are in the younger generation Z, those generation, they are really like not very materialistic. Like they are like, I want to shop vintage. I want to be, a little more resourceful and reusing things. I don't have to have as many things or trinkets. They've kind of shifted that pendulum because they haven't really gone through a cultural experience of not having, which is a wonderful blessing. But I think it's hard for us and the millennials as we're inheriting our parents' things, to have the emotional baggage of carrying on. They weren't able to let go of things, and I want to honor my loved one. How can I let go of this?
Yes.
And that's just so complex. It's just very complex with grief. It's very complex with honoring somebody's life and legacy and memory of them. And we want to be very gentle and delicate with that. But there's millions of millennials who are really experiencing this hardship of, I've inherited my parents' home and all of their 300,000 or more belongings in their home. And that's one of the big things for our book, Reframe and Reclaim, to be gentle and have some processes and have some steps, and that 7-step process of, if you are inheriting someone else's things, to give yourself time to go through that, but also allow yourself to not have to keep all of that.
Yes.
Which is so hard.
So hard.
But I think, like you said, with practice, I know in the book you talked about, as a child, when there was a death experience, it's like, take something to remember them.
Yes.
Take something. And it's a very beautiful gesture, but then it kind of becomes, if I don't have this, will I remember them?
Yes.
And with that, it can be kind of challenging how to have that balancing act. If I want to remember this person, but I don't want to hold on to this, brass dish.
Right.
And I have many brass dishes from, passed down to me from my grandmother, and was her mother's or her grandmother's, and I want to honor that. It was important to her, but they stay tucked away, preserved somewhere in a buffet that I have.
And I would say, going back to that, pendulum swing, I think it's also such societal differences, right? And like technology. So the boomers who did not have, then they go into the 50s and 60s, and it's like plastics, mass production,
Right.
Things are cheaper. Then it's 80s, and it's consumerism, and then it's 90s, and more consumerism, and then fast fashion, and all those things. So it was all about convenience. And do this quick, get this microwave, get this appliance, do this,
and it's just so disposable.
All disposable, yes. And now Gen Z is they have been given the gift of like digital photos, so they don't have to have tons and tons of photo albums and picture frames. They have everything they need right here. Their music, music collections were huge in the 90s.
You use streaming service now.
Yes, you don't need a big boom box. You have your phone, and so
Your
I
DVD
think
and CD.
yes. So I
cassette.
think all the societal changes has also helped them to really understand I don't need the space for these things. It can be done digitally. Now, on top of that, going back to like my experience with my death losses and stuff, being younger, I always felt the guilt and like the need to hold on because I was young, and so I don't have the opportunity to make new memories. And so to me, it's like, oh, I have to hold on and grasp this really tight, or I'm going to forget. Right? Where if you're older, you are able to make new memories and replace those, so you have a little bit bigger pool to pull from. Is kind of my thought process with that. But again, going back to what you're saying with the practice of it and being able to let go, I have found personally, again, going back to technology, and I'm saying going back a lot, but like taking pictures, being able to take a picture of an item and let it go has really helped me emotionally to check off that anxiety box of like, I have this photo so I can remember this if I need to, because I have a big fear of forgetting. So it's like I have the photo if I need it, but I've never actually gone back to re-look at those.
But
it's the security blanket.
If you want or need
Yes.
to one day.
Yes.
But I don't have to have storage bins and boxes and real estate taking up space where I'm trying to make new memories or have new things in my home that are needed to help me in my life functioning.
Right. And it's like, it kind of is that saying of how can you move forward if you're stuck in the past, and if your environment is all reflective of like the person you were or the things from the past, are you making space for the things that are functioning and helpful for this next life chapter or your current life chapter?
Yeah. And I think it's, this is not to put any shame or blame on any generation. There's a lot of honor and respect for, what the life experiences are for every generation and the things they've experienced. But I think it just is explanation of why this is happening so much to the millennials right now, is because they had role models of, we hold things, we keep things, we respect things, we use them. And what's beautiful is, the younger generations, you're like, you know what? I have this if I need it, or I can come back to it later with technology, or not really needing so as much material things. But for those of us who are inheriting that, if you're needing support with that, there are, professional organizers, there are estate sales that can help you with that. And the book, if you are ready just to go at your own pace, the 7 steps to reframe your relationship with your belongings, your loved one's belongings, and reclaim the physical real estate, but also your peace of mind with what to do with these items. I know for me, my dad lived in Florida. He was a sailor. He sailed boats in the ocean. He was a master sailor, and he had this beautiful gadget. I don't even know what it's called, of actually like navigating through the stars and how to navigate if your devices, your gadgets on your boat weren't working for any reason. And I was like, this is so cool. This is so wonderful. My dad, he learned how to use this. But instead of me taking it to a landlocked place where I don't know how to use this gadget, we actually donated that to a sailing school, and that was able to be reused. Other students, I hope, are learning on this gadget, and that gadget gets to be lived on. My dad's legacy gets to live on, and I feel comfort with that. Now, I've talked about, not a very sentimental person when it comes to materials. I'm very sentimental when it comes to photos. And so I think for me, I could take hundreds of photos of a day and not want to erase a single one. But I think that is, another piece of where we're going with millennial, Gen Zs, and alphas one day, is how to digitally declutter things. And that's becoming more and more resources of digital capacity of storage, and how much can your computer store, and how much can your phone store, and external hard drives, and how to keep those safe but also organized. And that's something that I'm going to be working on in 2026, of those photo files and how to keep
Yes.
those organized better. And what do I really need? Do I really need that snapshot of, the corner of my hand? Or can I remember this event or moment with these 5 photos, not these 25 photos?
Right. Or even taking out duplicates and things
Right.
like that, very similar
Right.
images. And there is software that can help you navigate that now as well.
See, technology. Love that.
See, I know. And then you can even make, photo books like back in my day, you would have to build the scrapbook, get the photos, cut it out, glue it, write the things down. And now you can just do it all digitally. And it's so much easier to make those, memory books and, really share the information that you want to remember or, jot down journal entries. I know for me growing up, you always had to do a diary or write something down, but it's always not convenient. You're sitting in a waiting room where you don't have a pen and paper or you're somewhere. Now it's just notes on your phone. And I've been able to save my kids' funny quotes that they say because I can easily enter it. Right. And so use technology to your advantage where you can. I think it's really helpful. And then, just give yourself some grace. I think have conversations with your parents sooner rather than later. I've had great conversations with my mom where we've been able to go through the things because I've been why are we keeping this? What does this mean? And not in a judgy way, but just educate
help me understand the value of this for you.
And so she's been able to say, oh, this is from my grandmother. This, this is why I kept this item from my mom. And she also has the understanding of whenever I pass, it's not going to matter to me what happens with these things. You guys are going to have to take them on if you want them or if you don't. But these are the reasons why I kept them. So that way you know the history and the legacy if you do decide to keep these items. So that's been really helpful.
And I think that, if you are one of those people who are inheriting other people's things, reach out to the resources. I know it can be very overwhelming if you haven't had these conversations. These conversations are very hard to have, especially if there's not any documentation in place for someone. If you don't have documentation, a will or a trust or anything about your estate that you would consider that, I think it just creates a lot more ease and less decision making for those. They know this is how I want my property to be divided. This is how I want people to know about these things and the information I have and why it's important. But I think those conversations, a lot of us kind of stay away from because we don't want to talk about or think about when or if that might happen. But the honest reality is that it will happen to all of us. And honestly, when we're able to know what our parents, our loved ones want with their things, I think they feel more at ease and we feel more at ease. There's less of that stress and overwhelm whenever we have those conversations.
For sure. And then, there's not the fighting between siblings after the person passes either, because there's level set expectations of what's what. My mom has handwritten notes of this item goes to this person, this item goes, it's in her will as well as attached to the piece of furniture or the item. So that's, I think, also helpful. But yeah, the conversations are hard. If you are in a situation where you've inherited a house, you don't know where to start. I know you said reach out to different resources that you can, but also just go 20 minutes at a time, one box at a time. And that will help you gain momentum to keep going. If you have to do it with someone else and they can't be there, I recommend just get all the mugs together and take a picture, say, what would you like? And then you can move through and start getting things out of the house. Because I think the hardest part is when things are in limbo. So you're well, I have to wait to hear back from this person. And do they want this? And I don't want to get rid of it in case if they want it and then they'll be mad at me and all the things. And so come up with a system, whether it's photographs, and then you can get the unwanted items out, or maybe it's you go through it and say, and you set aside, this is what I want. And then here's a box of things for you to go through. What do you want? And then you can go back and compromise on anything that you had already grabbed. So those are some other techniques for going through if you're in that situation.
Yeah. Zoom is really great. FaceTime is really great.
Yep.
I know when my grandmother passed, one of my aunts would take pictures or just call me and be like, I have these items, or is something that you would be interested in. Some of the things I never knew my grandmother had, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. I love that painting that my great grandfather painted, and I have that in my bedroom now. But there's some things you're like, I have like a very limited things of my grandmother's because I want to make sure the things I do have are being displayed, are being honored.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a little more selective in that. There's lots of things that remind me of her. She was a wonderful, beautiful spirit and woman, somebody that one of my favorite people in the world. However, having 50 or 500 of her things isn't going to make me remember her more.
Yes.
But I did find the things that meant most to me that I connected with in remembering her.
Another critical thing, I would have a friend or a family member, someone who will not be inheriting anything, or someone who doesn't really have a say either way. Bring them in so you can sit there and make decisions and give them the item and let them put it in the donate box. Let them put it in the trash. Let them put it in the keep bin, because that way you can sit there and focus. Because as soon as you get up to go do something, you're going to get distracted by, oh, I need to go through this, or oh, that reminds me of this memory, and then you're going to go down memory lane.
And again, give yourself time.
Yes.
You don't have to go through everything in a day, a week, a month, a year. But I do love the idea of asking others to come in and support you in that.
Yes.
I know whenever we did our case studies with Reframe Reclaim with our clients, we were in the room. The clients made all the decisions, but we did all the actions. What do you want with this shirt? What do you want with this book? What do you want with this photo? What do you want with, this dish? And then we would move it. And then once we had all of the box for donation packed up, we actually moved it outside of the house. And so it was like out of the way and we had more space to go through more. And we were not emotionally attached to any of the things. We were just there to support and help. And seeing that process, if you're ready for it, can definitely go much faster for you. And again, having that accountability, it just feels like it's not as heavy and overwhelming.
Well, I think too, you just said it. It's like we're not emotionally attached, right? And I think sometimes, especially for me, in the early stages, when I would go through things, if my moms are like, should I keep this? Should I not? And we would kind of lean into our insecurities and she'd be like, oh, just keep it just in case. And so I would end up holding on to things that, if I'm asking myself, should it go, then it probably needs to go. And so I think having people who are not emotionally attached, being able to move that, you will strengthen that muscle faster to be able to make decisions faster. And that was something we saw over and over and over again in our case studies. People said it went faster than they thought it would, and that they were able to make decisions much easier than they thought they would. So,
many clients said the reason I haven't been through this space or tried to tackle this area is because it's going to take so long. Mm-hmm. And it was literally 2 people in there with a
4
little
to 6 hours.
Yeah. And people were like, it would take like all weekend
or 3 weeks.
We would go through it, or it's going to take me a whole week. And we go through it in hours. And so again, not that we were pushing anybody to make a decision. It's just like, what about this? Okay. What about this? Okay. And then they're just sitting and thinking, and that mental load is so much. And so it takes a lot of energy.
Yes.
But we were able to do the physical work to take things and separate them and then actually remove things when the client was ready.
And it was so cool to see the instant gratification of the room before and after, not only the space, but also physically. The clients would always just physically look lighter when we were done. It's like they kept saying repeatedly, I can breathe. I feel like a weight's been taken off. So if you feel like you're ready to kind of tackle that, we do recommend the book. It guides you through the entire 7-step process. It's broken down by the excuses we tell ourselves. So if you're going through a baby boomer's house and they held on to everything and I can't let go of this, there's chapters specifically for this. I might use this one day. If you're going through, a passing of someone and they meant a lot to you and you're really struggling with the sentimentality of the items, there's chapters related to that. And so you can really, the book's written where you don't have to read it cover to cover. You can jump around and go to the excuses that really hit home for you and dive right in. So there's that resource. Again, like Courtney said, you can reach out to professionals in your area. to reach out to us. We're happy to help. We love, helping people go through this process because we've been able to see the benefits of it. So,
Yeah. So if you're one of the millennials like we are, and we're in this chapter of sandwiched between our parents and caring for them and our children and caring for them, you're already juggling so much.
yes.
So we've talked about how to work with your children and practicing and role modeling a little bit of that decluttering and donating. We're helping our children learn healthy habits. But if your parents haven't learned those habits and they're not ready for that, having those conversations, or if you're in that place of already inheriting their things, go to counseling, reach out to somebody that's unbiased, you can just be honest and real with and authentic. Reach out to an estate sale company. You can reach out to one of us. We do have virtual consultations as well. We do travel within a certain radius, for now. But we would love to come and support you in any way or give you additional resources of where to start or how to start that process.
Yes. So until next time, see you later.